expect the impossible again. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is Mission Impossible 2. Welcome to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy facts, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Christian.
And I'm Zach.
And we are back with one of my favorite franchises. That's right, I've got my Oakleys and my leather jacket on, literally. We are covering Mission Impossible 2.
If this were the 90s, I bet you'd be looking really cool right now.
This movie came out in 2000.
The 90s lasted until 9/11, I'm pretty sure. We all agreed to that.
Wait, it lasted until 9/11? Is that what you just said?
You know how, like, Adamant was the death of the 60s, even though it took place in, like, 1971 or something?
Sure.
It's like things have to take a little bit of time to change.
All right. Well, that voice you just heard is our guest star returning from our coverage of the first Mission Impossible. We have Jay.
Hello, everybody. How
Welcome
y'all
back,
doing?
Jay.
It's good to be back.
I know, Jay, you've seen this movie before. Zach, had you seen this movie before?
I saw the part where he's climbing, and then he gets the mission, and he throws in the glasses, and they explode. That was the only part of this I've seen.
So you saw the trailer.
Yeah, pretty much. Didn't we watch this at my bachelor party? You may not have been paying attention, though.
Yeah, not paying attention. That's the reason. Let's go with that.
He might have been looking at the bottom of a cup.
Looking somewhere. But yes, we are back with Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo, starring Tom Cruise. But did you guys also see the story is by Ronald D. Moore and Brannon Braga?
Yes, but also by, what's his face? Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown.
Yeah.
Okay. Some pretty impressive names.
So this is one of those Hollywood things where if you've ever even touched a version of the script, you get some sort of credit.
Which I appreciate,
Yeah.
considering today a lot of people are not getting credited for
This
a
is
lot
very
of their work.
true. I believe that there's not a lot that came from the Brannon Braga, and who's the other guy? Ronald D. Moore.
Yeah.
If you're not a Star Trek fan, they are big in the Star Trek world.
Yeah, they're producers.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know that much was actually taken from their draft. I think a lot was taken from the Robert Towne draft. We know Zach's history. Apparently, he had only seen the trailer, basically. Jay, what's your history with this movie?
I watched it in the theater, I believe, 3 times when it came out.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
I guess you liked it then.
Yes, I did. It's a Mission Impossible movie. I mean, how can you go wrong? And I mean, at the time, Tom Cruise was still a big hit, and I had a lot of fun. Was a big hit at that moment, like he was stupidly popular at that point.
Okay, fair enough. You know, this is the year 2000. Okay, Eyes Wide Shut was the year before or after. So was Jerry Maguire was soon around there too, and I think Magnolia was probably, and Vanilla Sky were not so long after. So this is like one of his big runs of movies.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry Maguire, Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, Vanilla Sky, Minority Report came right after this. Yeah. And then Austin Powers right after that. So, and then we got to The Last Samurai.
Hey, I love The Last Samurai. But we're not here to talk about The Last Samurai. To just briefly cover it, I also saw this movie 3 times in theaters. You know, it hit me I was about 13, so it's that perfect age for all the ridiculousness of this movie.
Something else I should say about this movie is that my understanding is that it's one of, quote, the bad ones. As in 2 and 3 are bad, and then it gets good again with 4. I know I'm talking to a couple of super fans, so you guys are probably going to disagree, but that's what I heard.
I want to say, in hindsight, people have sort of lambasted it as one of the more uneven ones over the years. At the time, it wasn't. I mean, it was considered pretty.
Was it the highest grossing movie of the year? Well,
it's a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and a 6.1 on IMDb. So that's like okay, I suppose.
Well, it was also in that period of time where movies could sit in a theater for the longest time. Oh, it is the second highest grossing movie of that year, lost only to How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yep, and just above Gladiator.
Yeah. So wow. Made more money because I remember, I saw this when it came out in May, and then around August or July, it was still at the top of the box office, if I recall. So it just stayed there.
Yeah, and it crushed Space Cowboys. It more than doubled Space Cowboys.
I mean, I do like Space Cowboys, but we're not here to talk about Space Cowboys. We're here to talk Mission Impossible 2, or MI2, as all the posters branded it.
Yes, let's not leave our listeners hanging from a cliff. Let's just jump into it.
All right, here we go. Here's the IMDb summary. IMF agent Ethan Hunt is sent to Sydney to find and destroy a genetically modified disease called Chimera. That's
Pretty
it.
succinct and to the point.
Well, they left his team out.
Well, this is where, I mean, even in the first movie, it is much more of a solo deal. Whereas here, actually, you do get a little bit more team, but it's mostly Ethan.
It's not technically wrong to say that he is sent. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's only allowed 2 teammates, and the third has to be Naya.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's still
Let's-
early on when he's limited in his resources.
hmm
You mean Nia?
No.
Her name is spelled Nia, like Nia Cat. You guys noticed that in the
I
subtitles?
didn't. Like, I knew of Naya before I heard of Nia Cat, so that's in my mind, that's how that's pronounced.
Okay, I'm not going to be a troll and keep calling her that. I will be
Please don't.
up with the rest of you. Yep.
All right, so we start in Sydney, Biosite Pharmaceuticals. We have Dr. Vladimir Nikorovich, played by Rade Serbidziga, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
He is a very familiar face if you watch X-Men First Class, or in Batman Begins, he's the guy who offers Bruce Wayne his coat.
Oh.
He's also in Eyes Wide Shut as the kind of pervy costume shop owner. And he's sending a message to Ethan Hunt and says, however we travel, we have to leave within 20 hours of departure. And he also gives this whole speech about how every search for a hero must begin with something that every hero requires, a villain.
So I thought this was interesting that this guy had a solution in search of a problem. And he needed a problem. Again, we talked about in the Ultimates how they needed a villain for the Ultimates to fight, which I still think is a really good idea. And it is funny how that's like what kicks off this whole potentially catastrophic series of events.
Yep, we see him inject himself with something. We also see him leave the biosite, and then he sees a bunch of kids singing "Ring Around the Roses." And once he does, the screen fades out to black and white and blurry.
Yep, and it flashes back to like an older time period and flashes back and forth, giving you the whole Black Plague vibe. Well, not the vibe, but the actual Black Plague point of Ring Around the Roses. So it gives you that nice little preview and the little bit
reference
of
point.
Yeah, so that way you kind of sort of get what's happening, but you're not quite 100% sure where it's going.
I could not figure out what was happening at this part. I just wrote down Bellerophon, Chimera, and then CGI plane.
Yes. So we get onto the airplane. Dr. Nikorovich keeps calling Ethan Dimitri. So he uses that phrase, you're sorry and I'm sorry. And we find out that once upon a time, Ethan saved Dr. Nikorovich and his colleague Gratsky, but his Gratsky has since died. And he mentions that apparently once you've been infected with Chimera within 20 hours, nothing can save you.
Okay, so I have a couple things here. So first of all, they keep reiterating this whole 20 hours thing. Probably a little bit too much, but it's fine. But second of all, Ethan seems evil in this part. Do you guys kind of get evil vibes off of him? I mean, we learn later that he is not himself.
I don't know. I don't really see it. There's a little touch of it sometimes. Like the way he smiles, it's not quite Ethan.
Yeah, and he's a little too. He pushes on the comedy, like the comedic, not the comedy or comedic end, but the sarcasm a little too heavy at times. But that other times it's more of a dry. It's not the same punch as what he typically would do. So it gives you that tiny bit, but it still would initially. It did when I first watched it. Definitely still didn't trigger any. Oh, what's going on?
Okay. Also, I want to say that Ethan has long hair, which he did not in the first one.
Oh,
yes. Inspiration for one of the inspirations for my current long locks.
I also feel like it makes it look like it was in the 90s because long hair on men was very in the 90s.
It was still in the early 2000s.
That's what I mean about how it blurs over. By the way, I want to amend it. 90s ended with the election of George W. Bush. How's that?
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. So the captain gasses everybody with the oxygen masks and knocks them all out. And this was crazy. It reminded me of Night and Day. I think everything on a plane will remind me of Night and Day forever.
Oh man. Wow.
And then it's revealed that Ethan is not himself. He's wearing a mask.
Well, before he pulls off the mask, though, he breaks Dr. Nikovich's neck. First he hits him with a throat strike, and then breaks his neck, grabs Nikorovich's briefcase, and gives it to one of his goons. and pulls off a mask. Who is it? It's the guy who almost played Wolverine.
It's some guy. It's like some generic-looking white guy. Great.
Dougray Scott.
Random dude number 1 in the
Yeah.
credits. Did you notice that Dominic Purcell is in this scene?
No,
oh
I
yeah,
did not.
oh yeah, he's there. That's
I was
two
like, what?
Arrowverse castmates because Dougray Scott is in Batwoman as Kate Kane's dad.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he's in there. I think he's a goon in like the rest of the movie too. He dies in like one of the car chases.
Yeah, he's there for a while.
Yeah, I see him on IMDb, and I'm sorry that I missed him. It's going to pontificate more about how there's this big reveal where he takes the mask off, and it's just some guy. Like, I don't even know.
But it's clearly not Ethan. I think that's the point.
Okay.
I love the
thought it
musical sting here.
Oh yeah, the musical, the interludes and how it interplays with this whole beginning section is fantastic. It really carries through the theme, the beat, and then it really just amps it up so much more to the beginning. I thought it was interesting that in this part, Sean Ambrose, or actually, I guess it would be Stamper, who gasses everybody, and they're knocking them out rather than killing people, just to kill them.
Just to kill them later? Yeah.
I guess it deniability.
Yeah, exactly. It's so that there's no. Well, I don't know if you could run toxicology on those corpses, but by the time that they found them, so probably it would be something undetectable, so that there's no trace that it was something other than an accident.
Yeah. Actually, I do want to mention one other thing. That briefcase had the strongest freaking leather in the world. I mean, it could survive a free fall.
Yep.
He just like has a single strap on his harness and it's just dangling there as he jumps out. I'm like, oh, that leather. Oh, that's some good leather. I wonder.
Yeah, they're really putting a lot of faith into it, considering their whole mission depends on them getting it out.
Right.
Also, the part where they open the plane and they all jump out of the plane, so they have their like arms close to the chest and then go through and then open. I thought they were going to have wingsuits, but I guess wingsuits haven't been invented in 2000.
Not quite yet. Probably more so that they can clear the plane. So when you're moving, Zach, you did the indoor skydiving at my bachelor party, right?
Yeah, I wasn't drunk for that.
But yeah, so, any way you move your body is going to move you through the air in a particular way. So I believe contorting yourself the way they do gets them clear of the plane so that when it comes down, they are not going to be underneath it.
Gives you the opportunity to dive straight down or not, or as close to straight down and as quickly as possible. So you immediately clear rather than having the possibility of bumping up against the ship because also you have to think about how the air drafts flow under and over wings and the ship and the plane. So you need to be able to cut through all of that. So you have to basically be a needle through all of it. And it was shortly after the wingsuit was created. It was like
cool.
99, 98,
okay.
something like that.
So probably while they were filming this, because this had a notoriously long shoot, and the reason I called Ambrose not Wolverine is because he was originally cast as Wolverine, but because this movie ran long, he had to drop out, and that's why we have Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
He is such a generic-looking guy. I'm glad they went with Hugh Jackman instead.
If you look at his face, he's still. I mean, Doug.
You can see it, kind of.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Sure.
To be fair, Hugh Jackman made the character. I mean, like they did work to make him fit.
Yeah.
And now you only picture him. But I mean, at first people go, "Oh yeah, totally." But I mean, if they went with Doug Ray, it would have been totally fine. I think everyone would have been like, "Oh yeah." I don't know if he would have put in the work to become.
The accent would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever heard him not use his regular accent.
Well, what was the deal with his accent in this movie?
It's Scottish.
I don't think so. It was some weird amalgamation of all the UK accents.
It was like him trying to do a Australian accent, but not really change how he said words.
Okay, I can see that. The plane crashes, and we cut to rock climbing again.
And this is probably why it took so long to film, because he was just hanging there forever and ever and ever. I forgot how long this whole scene
quite a long sequence. You have him climbing to the song Aiko Aiko.
Yeah, I like that song.
It also featured in the Tom Cruise movie Rain Man.
He does love that song.
So this is also the reason why I took up rock climbing, although I've only done indoor. And I may or may not have climbed to that song because, hey, it's me. Also wearing that outfit.
I would not expect anything less.
Ethan Hunt was apparently free soloing before it was cool.
He does this thing where he's stuck in one area. He jumps from one tower to the next, ends up slipping, catches it himself with one arm, Christ-looking pose. It's known as a reverse Iron Cross, and then finally climbs to the top, and where there's a helicopter waiting for him. Guys in the helicopter fire a rocket, not at him, but right near him, and inside are a nice pair of Oakleys. I believe these are the Romeo style.
Yeah,
Which,
the 90s when sunglasses were the peak of cool.
Yeah, they were.
So yeah, he puts on the sunglasses. I noticed on the sunglasses there are these like tiny headphones that extend from the sunglasses.
They were Google glasses before Google Glasses.
Exactly, yeah. And it like gives him a little retinal scan, which is what, like, when it moves, every time I do a Face ID, it reminds me of that because it does the little circle thing and then identity confirmed.
I feel like a lot of our facial recognition and all of that is based because of that. Like they're like, that was cool. Let's make all of our stuff do that.
Pretty much. And this is where we get the Limp Bizkit version of the Mission Impossible theme, which is still one of my go-tos for karaoke.
It is so good. So good.
It is so good.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm confused. The Limp Bizkit version of the theme has words?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it does. And you only hear them in the end credits.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I turned it off as soon as the end credits started.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, well, then we'll have more to talk about later. While we're here talking about the rock climbing, I gotta bring up the MTV Movie Awards skit.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. Please do.
So I sent it to both of you just to make sure, but there was a skit for the MTV Movie Awards where it had Ben Stiller as Tom Cruise's stunt guy. Tom Cruise, spelled Crooze. Just Tom Cruise most of the time doesn't use a stunt double, so it's just all the ridiculousness of that. And it's just a really good skit. We will post it to our social medias after this comes out because everyone needs to watch it. You guys watch it? What do you think of it?
it felt like an SNL skit where it was just one joke repeated over and over again.
Oh, yes, your favorite bit.
Yeah, my favorite part was when Ben Stiller is being held to the ground and punched in the face repeatedly, which is never something that happens in the movie, at least not as far as I remember.
Mhm.
But it just cuts to John Woo. He's just sitting there looking at the camera and he just says, harder.
I expected him to be steepling his finger, goes, yes, yes.
You know, given all the production problems of this movie, I'm actually a little surprised they got John Woo in for that skit.
I'm surprised he actually went along with it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I figured he would have been like, okay, you could do it. But I didn't expect to see him that much in that.
Yeah. Back to the movie. Yeah, so the retinal scan. The sunglasses are how Ethan gets his mission briefing. We find out that there's an operation called Chimera. He can select any 2 team members, but the third must be Thief Naya Nordoff Hall.
This was like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Where they're like, there's a civilian who really doesn't want to be a part of it, but you're going to convince her to be a part of it anyway. And that was Alicia Vikander.
Yep.
I mean, it is common in the show, if I recall, that they will occasionally bring in other people who are like a thief or something else to like add to their team.
Yeah, random expertise that they've been monitoring for a while.
Yeah. And
maybe
then
one day to recruit.
You know, he gets this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds, so he takes off his sunglasses and throws them to the screen as they explode. And cut to the credits.
Very 90s credit sequence with a lot of early computer animation.
Computer animation for like the letterings, but this is the first time, well, only time in the series where we don't actually get that inner cut of all the like scenes from way into the movie.
Yep.
Only thing we get is like the images of the like Chimera and Bellerophon that we, see later on.
Yeah, I was looking for him too.
So we go to Seville, where Ethan has to recruit Naya. There's a lot of flamenco dancing. Ethan's there following Naya. They're looking at each other, and then she disappears with the wave of the flamenco dancer's like sleeve. She's running upstairs to the safe and picking the lock, and then Ethan catches her.
So this is very Dark Knight Rises. She really reminded me of Anne Hathaway from.
I can see that.
Yeah, definitely. She definitely has that flirty, but very competent.
Mm-hmm.
Go with the flow type attitude.
The banter here was very James Bond, which I don't think I like, but it is interesting to see a transition from the Ethan Hunt in movie number 1 and Ethan Hunt later, where he's pretty straight-laced and doesn't do a lot of this stuff. But I will say that he's not James Bond and should stop acting like James Bond. She breaks in, and there's multiple shots where the camera is looking down her dress. Can we talk about this, or we're going to get to that later? It was troubling, and it's especially troubling seeing John Woo in the skit that you mentioned earlier, where he's like pretty old. Okay. So I'm just imagining John Woo being like, back that camera up, perfect.
it's 2000. We have Coyote Ugly in 2000. We
gosh,
have
I forgot
American
about
Beauty
Coyote Ugly.
in 2000. We have Romeo. Oh, Romeo Must Die.
Huh.
We have Galaxy Quest in 2000. I
Uh-huh.
mean, these are all. It's a trademark of
The era.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, of that period.
But I mean, yes, okay, that there's gratuitous shots, let's say.
Okay.
I mean that we just gotta address that. But later on, and I'll talk about later. I was glad that there were not gratuitous shots of something.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciated the fact that they did it basically once and just for the
Yeah.
rest of it was perfectly fine after that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it was obviously a trend of that time.
Although
I'm
I
not saying it
think
was
there
a
was
good trend.
also there was a minor plot thing because that's where she also hides the jewels.
Right. So it's
So they're
almost,
maybe setting that up, but that it did linger a lot.
yeah,
Yep.
it's a
Yeah.
one scene thing. And it felt very much as a,
A
foreshadowing
foreshadow. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh. It's classy if it's foreshadowing.
Yeah, I feel like it basically is a foreshadow, but I mean,
It served a dual purpose.
Okay.
I mean, oh, very flimsy dual
Yeah.
purpose.
She triggers the alarm when she puts the case back into the safe. Guards burst in. We find out that Ethan is actually the security engineer, Mr. Keys. I mean, okay, if you're a security engineer, pick a better name than Mr. Keys.
I like
No, it
that.
totally makes sense. It's the best. The only other better thing would have been like
Mr. Guard?
Mr. Castle. That's what I would have done.
Rob Keys.
Rob Keys.
Robin Keys. How's that?
Oh, man.
Also, something else I wanted to point out that Naya is played by Tandy Newton, who you may know-
Tandiwe. Apparently, in her first credited role, they misspelled her name, and she just went with that as a professional name. But recently, as of like maybe last year, the year before, she's reclaimed her actual birth name and to use that professionally. So there's a W
Okay.
in there.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
deleted that W by mistake.
IMDb has it correctly. But yeah,
Yes.
you may know her from Westworld
Mm-hmm.
and some other things.
Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Chronicles of Riddick.
Ah, yes.
But anyway, back to the security engineer. That reminded me of like Burn Notice, where Michael Weston would be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually supposed to be
Mhm.
here. Goodbye."
It's a classic con move. Oh, you get caught? Let's play that, basically. And so they do. They play that together. Naya almost gets away with it, but then Ethan makes her give back the jewels.
Just like Batman would have done.
The first time I watched it, I didn't expect her to give back the jewel, or at least to have like another copy.
That would have been a good idea.
I was very caught off guard when he's just like, no. And I was like, come on, take the stuff and run.
Yeah. Outside, Naya asks, "Why do you let me get away with it if you were just going to make me give it back? Because I wanted to see how good you are. We could work together." And he reveals that he's the one who actually triggered the alarm. She didn't set the safe up. And she's pissed off and drives away.
Yeah, I would have kicked him in the nuts and I drove off if I were her.
Yeah. She's driving away. This is the next day. So she's been driving a very long time.
Yeah, apparently she drove all night.
She gets a call on her car phone. Remember those? It's Ethan. And she hangs up on him. And then Ethan drives up right next to her in this beautiful black Porsche. And he reveals that he's a spy, can clear her record. And she says, if you want me, you're going to have to catch me. Crashes into him. There's a car chase where they recklessly endanger a bunch of civilian lives.
And it goes on for so long, especially because we just had a scene of him recruiting her. Why is like a quarter of the movie him recruiting her?
The last scene was him trying to recruit her. He was successful, so he had to keep going.
It was too long, is what I'm saying.
But it had to build up the whole, I hate him. I'm now kind of intrigued, and I'm kind of want to show him up to, oh dear, I'm going to die. Oh, he saved me. Like, it has to give you that whole entire arc. It can't just go from, this guy set me up to, oh, I love you.
That didn't work for me either, but we can talk about that.
So she almost crashes off the cliff. Ethan saves her, Ethan pulls her up, and they kiss.
And then they bang off screen, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think the movie would have been improved if they did not hook up here?
No.
Because throughout the rest of the movie, there's this weird like love triangle thing that's like kind of half-baked.
I wouldn't call it half-baked.
Where she's like into Ethan, but they like barely even interact until the end.
Well, that's
why
why
it's a motivating factor throughout the rest of it is what it's supposed to be.
Like, I get your point where it felt rushed.
Fair.
I'm gonna guess what you're saying, but that's why you had such a long buildup of the car chase. So you got the whole entire arc of hate, animosity to okay, intrigue. He's kind of cute. Oh yeah. Oh, he's fast.
Actually, John Woo, you're right on track, because John Woo has said, like, I think it's either in the commentary or interviews, that this whole scene was supposed to be like a love scene with cars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they collide, and the
Mhm.
impact is just so strong. And then they're stuck on a cliffhanger of where the relationship is gonna go. Ooh.
Yes.
More foreshadowing by John Woo.
I think you guys are making a good point, and different from the usual formula of them getting together at the end of the movie, which is like pretty much every other action movie does that.
Mhm.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
So, like you said, they slept together. Ethan reveals that he actually doesn't know why they need her specifically. Naya assumes it's some sort of thief to catch a thief situation.
Mhm.
And so, to find out more information, he goes to meet Mission Commander Swanbeck, played by Anthony Hopkins.
That's right.
They meet in Spain, but still in Spain. There's some sort of festival going on. Apologizes for barging in on his vacation. And then Ethan says, "You're sorry and I'm sorry," which, of course, piques Swanbeck's attention. Shows him the video of Korvich,
Okay.
which is his speech from the beginning.
I didn't understand this whole "you're sorry, I'm sorry" thing.
It
Yeah.
shows the relationship, a deep relationship, so much so that they inherited each other's speech patterns.
Oh, so it's Nikolai who said that, because Ambrose says it when he's posing as Ethan,
Mm-mm.
right? No.
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 Okay.
Nikorovich
It's
says
not.
it.
He says it to him. Okay. I was a little confused. I thought they thought Ethan was going to be a traitor and he'd have to go rogue again, like he does in every movie.
This is the only movie he doesn't go rogue in.
Going Rogue by Ethan Hunt. So basically, in this scene, he recaps the stakes that he created this terrible disease, Chimera, and the cure.
Well, we don't know it's a disease yet, actually, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this terrible weapon, then, and
Yeah.
the one way to stop it.
Yeah, and it sets up the fact that, again, it showcases how much that Ethan actually did know him.
And cared.
So much
Like,
so
when-
that, so much so that they had the same speech patterns, which that whole, wait, did you say that? But also that Ethan can make the deduction to what it could possibly be, because at that time, no one has any idea what it is other than Sean Ambrose. So it showcases that he knows his work so well and his whole background so well that he can probably manipulate where the story goes.
Yep. Well, yeah, so we also find out apparently that the airplane captain, the real one, didn't die on the flight. He was actually stuffed into a suitcase and made the next flight. Ethan automatically thinks that it was Ambrose who did it. There's no question, because apparently they had reservations about each other, basically.
I have another question. Please tell me if my understanding is correct. The IMF gets contacted by Nikovich, excuse me. And he's like, I have 20 hours to get to my destination. But they can't find Ethan because Ethan's on vacation. So they send Ambrose with the Ethan mask to go get the scientist. But Ambrose decides to turn on them and take it for himself.
Yep.
Yes.
Wow, I actually understood what was happening.
The only difference is that he contacted them, and then once he got heard back, that's when he injected himself. He didn't inject himself and said, "Oh, I only have 20 hours." Like he says, "However we travel, I must arrive within 20 hours of departure." So it's whenever after when he left.
In that case, why didn't they just wait for Ethan to come back from vacation?
Because
they
couldn't find him, and
he's going to come back eventually.
The window of opportunity closes at a certain point.
I just think it's funny that the whole movie happened because Ethan didn't leave an out-of-office message before he went on vacation.
Well, he says, especially for these guys, if they tell you where I'm going, I won't be on holiday.
Appreciate they say holiday.
Yeah. Also, Ambrose is now just kind of a crappier version of Alec Trevelyan.
Ooh.
That's right, I said it.
We find out that Naya is Ambrose's ex, and that Ethan's supposed to use her to get to him. Of course, Ethan is resistant, but says, "Oh, if you have any reservations, look at this," and gives him a digital camera. Remember these things?
And I thought the digigle camera was going to be pictures of Naya and Ambrose banging.
Oh.
That's what I thought.
What? Why would that help him? No.
Because it would motivate him to get revenge on Ambrose, because they already got together.
How would Swanbeck know that they got together?
Because he's a super spy. He knows stuff.
Yeah.
He's not a super spy. He's just...
He's middle management.
I don't know.
He signs timesheets.
Yeah, and he gives out the missions. He doesn't go on the missions.
We're a spy agency. Find Hunt.
What's actually on the camera, and not what Zach thought, is images of the crashed plane. Which Ethan shows these to Naya, mentions Ambrose. she, of course, gets pissed off. Is like, oh, that's why I'm here. And I love this line, would it make you feel any better if I didn't want you to do this? Yeah, much. Well, then feel better. Like, okay, that's the best way to get someone to feel better. Shouting, feel better at them.
This was some serious romantic drama here.
I do appreciate her response when she gets the stuff and she's like, what? Let my conscience be my guide? Is this your whole pitch for me to do this? Want me to hook up with my ex and save the world? Ooh. And he's like, sure. I don't know. Does that work? No?
Yeah. She's also like, I don't have a conscience because I'm a thief. And I'm like, well, you can be a thief with a heart of gold.
But she's supposed to not be, apparently.
I guess not.
So she rather quickly comes around to the idea, I think mostly because he showed her the images of all the dead people.
Well, and the fact that he said that he wouldn't want her on it, but has to ask.
True. But she realizes that, okay, Sean's going to be suspicious if I just, pop up. So we need to make it so that it looks like that I'm in trouble and I can't get something I can't get out of on my own. So they frame her to make it look like she got caught and arrested. They inject her with this tracker that can be only tracked by one computer.
Don't lose that one computer.
Right. Sean gets her out, brings her to Sydney, and simultaneously, the rest of the team meets Ethan. And we have Luther Stickle coming back from the first movie, played by Ving Rhames. And then we have Billy Baird, the helicopter pilot and gopher extraordinaire.
Yeah, who's Aussie.
Yep.
He's Australian. And he's no Ving Rhames in terms of likability, put it that way.
Oh, I like Billy. Billy's fun.
Yeah, he gives you that quirky, I can do it all, but not really esque vibe.
Apparently, this role was supposed to be played by Steve Zahn, but he got, I think he was filming something else at the time, so they couldn't get him, so they got this guy. Their safe house is at a sheep farm, and as they get there, Luther steps in a pile of sheep crap. And ruining his do we know what kind of shoes? $800 I forget what kind of shoes. I know his coat's Versace. Right? Oh yeah, Gucci, right. So since the last movie, Luther's got this whole wardrobe upgrade, wearing some Gucci, some Versace.
He likes his fancy clothes.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact that it's early 2000s where it's baggy and it's not the tight, slim fit stuff.
Yeah. Naya arrives at Ambrose's place, trying to get a visual, but the computer keeps crapping out.
This is something I liked in Ghost Protocol too.
Yep.
That their stuff often fails.
Mm-hmm.
It's very realistic. James Bond's gadgets never fail. Never. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Rarely.
Naya gets there. Her scarf almost flies away, but Ambrose very creepily catches it. And they see them smooching. And one of the henchmen, Hugh Stamp, is watching Naya very suspiciously.
Naya, the first time I watched that, I was like, oh, that's a face.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if he was suspicious or if he was jealous.
That is one of the reads of that, is that he's jealous because he's in love with Ambrose.
I was definitely picking up on that vibe.
Yeah.
The line here that I like, it's not one of my favorites, but I felt the need to mention it. I think Luther says, she did it. She's in the compound.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, we can see that she's in the compound.
As I've said, audiences are sometimes idiots and need to be reminded of things.
It's just a little box on a screen. How do you know that's the compound? It's just a different color brown on top of a brown background. But it also showcases that fact that they were very concerned that he wouldn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
It ties it all back together. And especially that Ethan is the only one who really had any faith that she'd be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Sorry, he doesn't buy it though. He's suspicious of her right away, which I liked. He just fails anyway.
Stamper is, yeah. Ambrose and Naya go into the bedroom, and this is where we get the really uncomfortable scene.
Yeah,
which
creepy dress.
Bought her a dress and says, "Oh, try it on." Just stays there as she changes, then doesn't let her put it on. And so this is where I said that I appreciate that they didn't have any gratuitous shots. It was really all focused on her face when she got undressed, and it was actually it was made you felt her uncomfortableness without being explicit.
Yeah, and you get the creepy.
Oh god, these creepy eyes.
Yeah, and the lady in red. Lady in red is always a thing, but I was like, oh, get it off his face. What are we doing? Get it off.
I think the best example of this trope is probably Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I'm sure it's been in other ones too.
Yes, which did have a gratuitous shot though.
It could have been a lot worse, but you're right.
Anyway, so we go back to Luther, who's watching the video that Dr. Nikorovich had left. He's trying to figure out what Chimera was. It says, what he was a genetic, or I forget what actually his profession was, some sort of geneticist. Why does he keep talking about this Greek myth? And this is where Ethan, figures out, oh, well, he must have been making some sort of virus to create an antidote. And is it that simple? Yeah, probably.
I feel like we had already figured it out as the audience by this point.
A little bit, probably. But this is, again,
I know. Yeah.
Need that little reminder sometimes.
Right, and it's also, he specializes in recombining DNA molecules.
That's the word, yes.
And all that stuff. So it gives you, it's not just a normal flu or plague.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that they're taking literally the worst possible strains of everything and ripping them apart, mashing them together to make something horrendous.
Viruses, something we don't know too much about, right?
I felt it very timely. Where there's a vaccine.
Bellerophon to Ambrose is looking at bids for Chimera, and he has this memory card that he pulls out of a digital camera, puts in an envelope. Now, Hugh is suspicious of Naya, says that she's probably... Yep, calls him out. Ambrose is like, no, even if she is, what doesn't... I can handle this. Why should I, not give in to my urges? Gets out a cigar cutter, threatens Hugh with the cigar cutter, actually cuts his finger with it.
Can't handle cigar cutter scenes in movies.
They're so bad. They're so visceral.
Ugh, yeah.
Also, during this scene, there's a part where they open a door and Naya's like in a bed sleeping, and they just look at her and then close it, which is also really creepy.
Yeah.
And the phrasing of Stamp.
Gagging for it.
Yeah, I was like, forgot that was the phrase they used for it. Oh. Yep. And then he's
Terrible.
Just like, I am gagging for it. And you're like, get off the screen, dude. Get off the screen.
John Woo did a good job in making us hate Ambrose.
I just like to imagine Ronald D. Moore being like, they never let me say this in Star Trek.
I think we're killing Jay here.
Okay, let's move on to the next scene, which is the Ascot opening day from My Fair Lady.
Yeah, we got the racetrack. Naya and Ambrose are there. Apparently, the the horse she bid on was called Thief of the Night. And as they're bidding on horses and watching everything, Stamper is behind, watching very creepily. He's got a bandage on his little pinky finger. And then Billy, disguised as like someone who works at the track, gives Naya a brochure. Says, naturally vain in the fourth, check her out, she's due. And inside the brochure is actually an earpiece, which, functions pretty much like an AirPod. You can talk with them right next to each other. Ethan's on comms, wants an update on who's at Ambrose's place. The only one she recognizes is Hugh. Asks about the photos of newspaper of money. And apparently those are bids from the different buyers. The highest bid was £37 million. Ambrose is meeting someone at the bar, John C. McCloy, who we find out is Nikorovich's boss. Ambrose is showing McCloy something on a digital camera, puts the memory card in his left jacket pocket. So they have Naya steal it.
McCloy is played by Brendan Gleeson, who's great. And I do think it's funny that they're selling McCloy his own product back to him.
I mean, that's well, it's even more complicated than that, but we'll get into it later. Naya steals I like how she does this. So she's like, pretends that she's stealing, some Australian money from him to make a bid because she doesn't have any money. And as she's doing that, she's also simultaneously stealing the memory card. So it's classic, if you're pickpocketing, you distract them with something else somewhere else on their body and grab it from what you actually are after.
Yeah, she's great in this scene. She's like doing all sorts of crazy hand motions, slipping devices around.
Yeah, so they meet at a betting table. Hugh is following Naya, but Billy smashes Hugh's finger in a door. Oof.
Do you think he has like rage issues?
Oh, definitely. Hugh, yes.
Or maybe he just wants to take out his hurt finger on somebody and Billy will suffice.
Yeah, I mean, if my chopped off finger got smashed, I would absolutely go after whoever just did it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. This is not who you are on your worst moment of the day. That's not who he is. He's not an angry person, but he is a henchman.
Otherwise, he's normally pretty
even keeled.
Yeah, he's very controlled.
Naya gives Ethan the memory chip or the memory card, and they have a stare off basically. and which Luther
I was about to
interrupts.
get around.
I do like how Ethan like appears next to her and then disappears just in time. And we learned that the virus is deadly. It's like,
well,
thanks.
very no, not only that. We also what we see is Nikorovic's colleague Gradsky in various levels of exposure. So like after 20 hours where he's like basically bleeding from every pore.
It starts at the 20-hour mark because
right.
that's where it's no turning back period.
Yeah,
and then it shows 23. And then it jumps
like
to 27 hour.
27. That's right.
I think 27. You're right, Jay. That's important to say because later, when Naya's infected and it's about to run out of time and she doesn't have any white hair or anything, you're like, she looks fine. So what's the problem?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so once Ethan sees this, he wants Naya out of there because he doesn't want any risk of her being exposed to that. But he doesn't tell her what's on the camera. Like, I feel like if he had just told her, or even shown her briefly, it's like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going to go.
I think it's plausible deniability. And then also, if you showed me that, I would never be able to act normal.
True.
Like, if I just have a hint that there's something dangerous, I could still kind of play it off. But if I watch someone basically turn into a puddle,
yeah,
I ain't doing nothing other than going, check.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the country just in case.
But yeah, so as this is all going on and he's telling her to get out of there, Q is like right behind them approaching and Ethan disappears just in the nick of time. Naya goes back to Ambrose, sneaks the envelope back, but puts it in the wrong pocket and Ambrose notices.
Oh, I was confused about that because I thought she was just too slow and he noticed it going in, if you know what I mean. And then later he's like, oh, it's going into the wrong pocket. Come on, Naya, are you serious? I thought you were supposed to be like a professional thief.
She was a little panicked at that moment.
She's a thief. She takes things. She doesn't put things back.
That's true. That's very true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got me there, Jay.
So back at the compound, Ambrose tells Hugh to get the envelope from his right jacket pocket, so he noticed. So we see McCloy leave his office. One of his other Ambrose's other henchmen, Wallace, who I didn't mention before, who's played by what's his face?
Like William something.
William Mapother, who is Tom Cruise's cousin.
Huh. That must be nice.
Tom Cruise, his original name, Tom Cruise Mapother IV. He pops up in a lot of Tom Cruise movies. He's in Minority Report. I remember him. He also played a role on Lost for a long time. I feel like his name was Ethan on Lost.
Sean Gunn was probably like, I see what this guy's doing. I can do it better.
Yeah.
Thin Rom, yeah.
As McCloy drives away, he's trying to like spit out a cigarette or a cigar, but the windows are locked. He sees a newspaper in the limo with his an article of his own death, and then like whoever's driving presses the AC button and gasses McCloy.
That newspaper with the obit was a little bit extra.
It gives them that fear, which I think really helps out later in this scene, this whole playthrough. But I appreciate the fact that it like talks about how he dies of
a mysterious
rare
illness.
Influenza.
That's right.
So it showcases that it was initially a flu. Like it ties it into that Chimera used to be a flu.
So back at the compound, Naya is sneaking around trying to get out, but then it gets captured by Ethan.
Who turns out not to be Ethan.
So we go over to McCloy, who's in like this hospital bed with partitions all set up. And as he comes back to consciousness, he sees Dr. Nikorovich, who's not dead somehow.
Now, I saw this mask coming. Usually I don't. But I was like, I'm pretty sure these bad ones, quote unquote, 2 and 3, have a lot of mask use. So I was ready to go. But what I was confused is it the bad guys using the masks or the good guys using the masks?
Fair enough. This is where McCloy has been told that he's dosed with Chimera, and he's like, how was I supposed to know that you need to be treated with Bellerophon within 20 hours? Dosed Gratsky with Chimera because he needed to see real world effects, not just something in a lab. McCloy wants to peddle Bellerophon as a cure for Chimera. You're like, all right, yeah, you were pulling these strands together to form like ultimate flu cure, but you were also creating this terrible virus in Chimera that the cure for it would be priceless.
It's creating the demand so you can fill the supply.
Yep.
Look at that evil big pharma. Can you imagine? Sorry, I have a question here. Was he actually infected by Chimera, or are they just faking it?
They're just faking him. They're just freaking him out to get whatever info they can out of him.
Which is why they had the newspaper to show that he was infected with a flu virus to put it in his head that I'm going to die because of Chimera. But it also gives him a plausible nightmare scenario where
yes.
So it has a dual.
But yeah, so they gas him again. He passes out, and Nikorovich pulls off a mask, and it's Ethan. But wait, who's with Naya then? Also, we didn't talk about this before, but I love in the first movie, Ethan had to do all the voices himself. Here, they have this little strip on his throat that like alters his vocal cords so that he can it will imitate any voice, which I thought was a neat idea.
And I like how when they take the mask off and they talk in the other guy's voice a couple times, just to really drive that home. It still doesn't explain how they can like go up and down in height or change builds, but
I mean, okay, we'll see that in 2 or 3 rather, how they change builds.
They have a muscle shirt.
Pretty much.
I wonder if this movie gave John Woo the idea for Face Off, by the way, because people take their faces off. Never mind then. I thought maybe the mask, but the show did the move, and the movie,
We're pretty commonly reported that, what's his face? Tom Cruise saw Face Off, saw the action in there, and also the faces coming off and being switched, and thought, okay, this is what I want for Mission Impossible 2.
So it's like, he's used to movies where people change their faces. That's hilarious.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing with like how he got JJ for Mission Impossible 3, which we'll talk more about, is basically a marathon the first season of Alias, and it's like, oh, I want to get JJ for this.
Okay.
Who's with Naya? Well, it's a fake Ethan, who once we see that Ethan was dressed up as Nikorovich, we assume that's probably Ambrose. So fake Ethan tells Naya not to alarm Ambrose and do whatever he asks. And he doesn't kiss her, because you would be able to tell with the mask.
And 2, because now he's disgusted by it.
Oh, that's also true, yes. Yeah.
And 3, he doesn't know that her and Ethan are together.
I think at this
he gets
point,
the idea.
He puts one and one together, considering she's like snuggling up on him and like kind of kissy with him, so he understands it. I mean, he kisses her on the head.
Yeah.
So I mean, he understands that they have that dynamic, but it's definitely the disgust and the whole. She might be able to tell how we kiss. We might kiss.
So this mask pull is probably my favorite, just because of how dramatic it is. So it's Ethan's face, and he is holding his holding his temples like he's Professor X trying to do mind control, and then he like pulls it from his temple all the way down his face and reveals angry Sean Ambrose.
And the wind goes
the most it's all connected. Yes.
Yeah, you see that one is connected, but it's also a great shot and one of the better pull because
like visual effects,
that, and because you could see how he's doing it in not the usual method. So like it sticks, and so you still get latex globules here and there on his face where he's not pulling it correctly. So like the glue just manages to adhere to it. So you could definitely tell that a very violent but very
visceral,
visceral, but just sloppy.
Yes. Ethan realizes that Ambrose doesn't have the virus. That's why he needs McCloy.
Okay, so, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Why doesn't he have the virus? What was in the briefcase in the beginning of the movie then?
Bellerophon.
Yeah, the cure.
Only the cure.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll get to it.
If you look at the bag, you could see only like 1 or 2 ridges.
We will explain.
I don't understand why the scientist infected himself and then brought the cure when he could have just brought them both in little vials.
We'll get to it.
Please explain it to me. I guess I'm dumb. Yeah. All right, moving on.
Okay. Since he doesn't have the virus, he's going to break into Biosite and destroy Chimera. Ambrose will have a cure without a disease, and then they're home free.
And at the same time, we're getting the voiceover from Ambrose talking about how he knows Ethan.
Looking at the blueprints, making a plan to break in. Ethan's idea, okay, so the lab is on the 42nd floor, and he's going to break in through the roof. There's a atrium that has louvers that close at sundown, only open for 40 seconds. And yes, as you were saying, Zach, or not Zach, Jay, Ethan's making his plan. Ambrose is revealing how well he knows Ethan, because he knows exactly what Ethan will do.
Because he's already had to play him a number of times. I also like the exhaust port.
I like the 2 briefings. I think that was funny.
Yeah.
More movies should do that.
Yeah. So he's going to jump in, but he has to get those cables cleared within 40 seconds. So they have a chopper above Biosite. Ethan's ready to go, but Luther's not ready. The louvers aren't moving, and he jumps before they open. Open at the very last second. He jumps all the way down, pulls the cable tight across his chest, and does the classic Mission Impossible pose.
Yeah, it's basically like a bungee jump.
Yeah.
Those gloves must be stupidly horrible. One, just to have
yeah.
the wire to just keep constantly threading through the palm, and then to
Mhm.
be able to grip and yank. And oh god, I can't imagine what his back felt getting
Right.
yanked like that. And his
Yeah.
crotch. Oh god. The harness just sudden yank.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like how the henchman is like right there, and it's only pure
Doesn't
luck that he doesn't see him.
skill. It's skill.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he manages to clear the cable in 19 seconds, activates the little transponder on his G-Shock watch, very 2000s.
That watch gets a lot of use in this movie
Oh,
too.
yeah. Oh, yes, it does. So we find out that apparently the only time that this can take place is at 23 hours, 1 minute, where the air filtration will cover his break-in, and this is when the shift change happens. So Hugh and his team can take out the guard at the bottom.
Yeah, this was crazy. It's like, oh my god, they know exactly where he is, and where he is. Why don't they kill him?
Well, they need to get up there first.
Well, I mean, obviously that they failed, but they should have succeeded. Everything should have gone right.
Yeah, but at the same time, why didn't they kill him? One, because they're going from the top and they're going in from the bottom, but also they want to set him up. Like Ambrose wants to set up Ethan at this point. His anger, he wants to show him up. He wants to
Yes.
basically prove he's the
That
better
he's
one
better. Yep.
in all capacity, and because he likes to leave a trail of bodies.
I guess you can also say that's why he didn't just hit that helicopter with an RPG when
Also, his
He's
main goal here is not to kill Ethan, but to actually steal Chimera.
Yeah, if he blew up the helicopter, the whole building would have gone down on lockdown, and then
Yeah.
so it's like I'm gonna do both at once.
Yeah. Ethan needs to kill Chimera in two places: the incubation chamber and the remaining virus in the injection guns. So he goes through the incubation chamber, raises the temperature, kills everything. And as he's doing this, Luther notices that Naya is in the building. And he can't tell Ethan for another 5.5 minutes. So,
Oh no, our hero.
mhm.
I also like. There's a quote here. Again, it's not one of my favorite
Oh,
ones.
yes.
He says, "What can we do? Just hope he
Hope
kills all
all
of
the
them
bugs
before the yellow dot meets the
reaches
red
the red
one."
one. Yes.
Thank you for explaining to me what is happening, Luthor.
Luther, not Luthor. He's not
Luthor.
A,
Sorry, Luthor.
Luther. He's not a villain from DC Comics.
He's just the main character in the Idris Elba TV show.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Ethan plants a bomb in the incubation chamber and goes to the injection gun. And he's injecting this little flash thing that'll kill the virus. And as he is about to do the last one, he realizes that the only way that Nikorovich would get Chimera out, because, okay, so Bellerophon, it's a cure. It's easy to get out of the building. That's something he wouldn't have an issue with. But Chimera's a top secret thing. Should not be easily able to get out of buildings. The only way he can get it out is to inject himself.
Not sure I buy it, but okay. If the movie says so. It's like, oh my god, someone else is going to be doing it. I thought Ethan was going to do it. I thought Ethan was going to inject
Looked
himself.
like for a second he was going to do it, but no. Right before he's about to kill the last virus, Ambrose's men arrive, shoot up the place. You get a big shootout.
Finally, I was waiting the whole movie for a John Woo shootout. That's what he does.
The injection gun is getting like thrown all over the place. Ethan does this nice little spin and starts dual wielding guns. Does this really fun, really cool slide as she's shooting two guns.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have a question.
Yes.
Does Ethan Hunt usually shoot this many people in these Mission Impossible movies?
Not in the first one. He didn't shoot a single person. In
Yeah,
the
I was gonna
second
say.
one, third one, there is quite a bit of shoot. Like when he's taking out someone. Yes. Fourth, not so much.
Not
No, I don't.
much, yeah.
Five, there's not. So it's really because it's a John Woo movie.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Like-
Typically, Ethan rather like Sean Ambrose says, he rather kind of divert and distract rather than kill people.
But
That's
when
true.
worse comes to worse, he's prepared to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, they're just minions, so
Yeah.
why not kill them?
Luther's got like maybe 2 minutes left on his timer before he can actually get back into radio contact with Ethan. Someone plants a bomb under his van. He notices it in the mirror and he grabs the laptop and the van explodes.
Yeah, he barely makes it out. But I like later when he goes running away and then he starts his own comment with Ethan. He's like,
Naya's in the building.
I'm out of shape, Ethan. I can't run 20 feet.
Yeah, I like that. It's basically a same copy of when they're at the track when he has to run and
Oh,
kill them with the
yes,
camera,
that's right.
and he's just like, and we see how quickly he can partition the fact that okay, he has to grab something, get out, run, and be able to communicate rather quickly. And you see the first time he just does it, and he's just sweating. He's just like, I booted up, and then the next time he's just like,
Yeah. They get caught in a stalemate in a little bit of a standoff. There's a nice joke where Ethan says he's fighting a bit of a cold.
Oh, I get it, because it's a flu.
Yeah.
All right.
Which, I mean, I used that gif a lot early in the pandemic.
I didn't get it until just now.
Come on. He taunts Ambrose that he didn't know where Chimera was and reveals that he knows that the top bid is for 37 million pounds. To counter, Ambrose is like, oh, yeah, someone's been slipping you our mail. Come out here. And brings out Naya. And of course, this gets Ethan's attention. Of course, Ambrose says, no, this is your fault that she's here because you brought her into this. Ambrose tells her to go and get the injection gun and bring it to me.
This part was very slow, I thought.
The tension was there for me.
Okay.
Again, it's a lot of the build up. It's showcasing the arc of emotions on everyone's side. It's going Ethan from his braggarty cockiness to his heartfelt worry to his now calculating mind process. And it's going from Sean's shock of that Ethan knows so much about the fact that he doesn't have it to his cocky, and it shows how their responses are exact opposites of each other the whole entire time. So you can see why Ethan is always like, "What? Wait, you got Sean to play me again?" And then it showcases Naya, who her whole thought of hi. Oh, you know what? I am clever. Screw you guys.
I don't understand why Naya's still alive. Like, why hasn't Ambrose just killed her?
She's a bargaining chip, and she's also an element of surprise that he can throw at Ethan that he's not prepared for.
Yeah, that's true. He's gonna mess with Ethan that way, and it's really effective.
And also gives him a perfect opportunity to show how much of a misogynist he is.
Yeah, I don't have exactly what he says, but yeah.
Just to dig in that extra control and extra just vile revenge on Naya as well. Dangling her in front of Ethan and
But this is where Naya realizes she can change the narrative herself. Take control and inject herself.
Yeah. And then everyone's like, what? Crazy. And then there's more shooting.
Ethan blows his bomb that he had set to get her out of the line of fire. Also starts a timer. Naya says that Ambrose can't kill me because I've got the last of the virus. And this is the bomb alerts regular biosite guards who come rushing in.
Yeah, they don't put up much of a fight, though. They just die pretty fast.
They're going up against either former IMF or highly trained goons.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's not plausible. It's just disappointing, and it makes it feel like there's less of a threat if like the cops are on their way, but the cops are really ineffective.
They're really supposed to be a threat. They're just supposed to be more chaos.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And then around here, Naya says, "Kill me," right?
Yeah, because she realizes that he can't get both of them out of there. So if you kill me, that's the end of it, and you can just get out of here.
Yeah, take a shot every time she says "kill me" in this movie. But then Ethan is like, "I can't kill you. You're too hot."
Well, he loves her now.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm joking.
You got 19 hours and 48 minutes. I'll get Bellerophon into your system before then.
Oh, he's gonna get something into our system.
Oh, Zach. Throws his little pack, which has like C4 or something, blows a hole in a wall, and base jumps out.
Which I liked. It was an actual explanation of why he couldn't get them both out. Because he says that, and I was like, well, but why?
Because that was his exit plan. Yep.
There you go. Yep.
Next day in downtown Sydney, Ambrose taunts Naya, leaves her with his men as he's going to go to do the deal with McCloy. And Ethan and his team are getting prepped to go in as well. They know where to find them. Ethan reveals that, whatever happens, Naya will take care of Naya, which means that if she doesn't get Bellerophon, she'll kill herself and take care of it. Not only running against her dying, but also before she tries to kill herself.
Yeah, which is good. Ticking clocks really work pretty well.
Except we don't actually know what time, at one point Luther asks, how much time is that? Not much.
Why did they never tell us how much time is left?
That's what I'm saying. They should have given us a little bit of a timer.
Because the way the scenes play out, there's
so much that happens.
There's so much that happens. There's a bunch of jump cuts. There's a bunch of long play scenes that it would have been a lot harder for them to keep track of the timing. And also, because of the way they're probably shooting the scenes, it would have forced them to be very specific what they're doing when they're shooting as well as when they're editing. It gives them more free play to kind of mishmash what they need to do.
Yeah. If they could have at least done one near the end, so that you only have, like, say, 10 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I expected better from Brandon Braga. That's all I'm saying.
Again, I'm pretty sure nothing from his script was used here.
If they had kept the clock ticking more, I think that would have improved this last bit a lot
Except there is a lot of jumps. Like, we don't, like, okay, we see them the next day, so there's presumably at least 6 or 7 hours gone. Ambrose and his team arrives at Bear Island. Ethan on the edge of the cliff, climbing the rocks up. He knocks out a guard with what I can only describe as a somersault kick.
It's a bicycle kick, like from soccer.
Yeah, basically.
And kicks him, like, right in the ribs and then pushes him over the cliff.
Yeah, that was great. Another gratuitous murder by Ethan Hunt here.
And he gets into the tunnels. Inside, Ambrose is showing McCloy that he has both vials. They test them. And Ethan is sneaking around. He knocks out another guard.
The Black Widow move with the legs. Doesn't Black Widow do this?
A variation, but yeah.
I think Harley Quinn also does it in the Suicide Squad.
So we find out that what Ambrose is after is not just money, but it's stocks.
This is ridiculous.
No,
It's
ridiculous.
actually smart.
Yeah, there's that trope that, cut Lex Luthor a check, basically. So, okay, you're inventing all this stuff. Why don't you just sell it and make money? So here, his plan is to make money.
But how is he going to get away with it? Because Brendan Gleeson knows he can't live a life above the law. He's breaking all these laws.
Well, McCoy will be a minority shareholder, so he can be basically shut down. 2, he's just as culpable, so he's not going to...
Because he was trying to get the virus too, and to distribute the virus, so he's not...
Yeah, not to mention the fact that he's a murderer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he killed Gratsky, that's right, yeah.
And a bioterrorist.
Yeah.
He's a bioterrorist himself.
Just to outline it for the audience if they haven't actually seen the movie, so Ambrose plans to spread an outbreak of Chimera, and that'll create demand for Bellerophon. And as this is happening, he is going to have stock options to buy Biosite stock at a certain price, and when those options will be worth billions, and he'll own 51% of Biosite.
Without having to pay a cent, because he's going to take the initial money that he gets from McCloy to buy all those shares.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's a seamless transition, and he's out of it. There is no paper trail for him. It's just strictly a transfer into a transfer.
Yep.
As long as Brendan Gleeson keeps his mouth shut.
Which he will, because he could be,
he'll go down as well, right?
Stuff gets exposed. Yeah, exactly.
He should have just
as this
started
is
promoting horse pills.
Do you
think anyone's going to get that?
I don't know. Let's see. That kind of dates when we recorded this episode.
Dates it in the 2021s.
Anyways, find out that Luther's computer are up and running. It's still vague on where. Somewhere in Sydney is where Naya is. Sneaking around some more, does this ridiculous double kick. So he kicks once with one leg with a jump, kicks with the other leg, and then flips over and with a bunch of birds around him. Classic John Woo.
Yeah, they're pigeons,
not doves.
So is this also the part where they talk about the DNA matching?
Yeah.
Okay, so since we're here, since you guys are both Asian, how do you feel about Asian scientists in movies?
Fine.
How there's like the one Asian guy in a movie is the scientist.
You mean like what's his name from Jurassic Park?
There's like a million examples, but that is one of them.
I mean,
we got to get our part somewhere.
He's like the only Asian character in this movie, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's a role, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely still plays into the stereotyping and into promoting the racial...
The minority myth.
And the subservience of Asian and people who just kind of go with it. But I mean, it's...
I'm actually honestly surprised, given this is a John Woo movie, that there weren't more Asian characters in it.
But it is a Mission Impossible.
True. In the future, we'll get more Asian people on the team, or henchmen who are Asian because are really good at martial arts, and they're there for that. So, it gets better later, but still here, it's not great.
Well, it reminded me of an interview I read or I listened to with Danny Trejo, who talked about, he played a criminal for like 50 years or something, right? His whole career. And he said that he used the connections he made in Hollywood, movie he made in Hollywood, to get more like Hispanic actors into roles. And he's very happy with that, and I'm happy that he's happy, but it sucks that it took him like his whole life basically to start playing people other than criminals.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's you do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's why representation is important.
Mm-hmm.
Back to this, so we get what I was call the peak woo. This scene. So Ethan throws a pipe bomb at the door, shoots it, so the door is on fire, and he goes past the door. And a dove flies through the door frame as Ethan's perfectly framed in there.
I love the dove.
It's just peak John Woo there.
I like how he doesn't even try to explain why there are doves everywhere in his movie. They just show up.
A dove is on the poster of this movie. Like the outline of birds is on the poster.
Do you think it's supposed to be like a metaphor for something? Or is this movie
He's
not that
the good guy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The harbinger of peace.
Yeah. So Ethan is hiding up in an alcove, and this bird gives him away. Like it flies out. Hugh turns back, sees the bird, and Ethan perfectly times it so that he swings out and kicks Hugh in the face. But they both land on the floor, and it says, "Raise your hands," very slowly. In his hand is a grenade, which he throws behind him into a bunch of like gasoline tanks.
Apparently, yeah.
Or it's like some flammable.
It says it's like flammable on there. I didn't know exactly what it was.
They look more like nitrous oxide tanks.
Nox.
I just love the red barrel exploding. It's like a video game.
Yep. Big explosion. We get Hugh on the radio calling Ambrose saying he's captured Ethan.
I'm like, I don't think so. Suspicious.
Hugh brings in Ethan, and he says that he broke his jaw, so he can't talk. Ambrose shoots him in the leg.
I was kind of like, I expect better from Ambrose. He should be smarter than this, because he knows about the masks.
But he's also pissed off at Ethan. So he's not thinking. Gets McCloy down on his knees and holds a gun to his head and says, "This is what's known as getting your gun off."
I hated that line.
Well, it's a callback to previously in the movie. It's such a need to get your gun off. You didn't know where the virus really was.
Except nobody says getting your gun off.
No. Fair enough. All right. Yes. No one says. Turns, instead of shooting McCloy, shoots Ethan a bunch, empties his clip into Ethan's chest.
It was real ugly.
With the music swelling. Dun, dun. Music gets quieter, and Ethan's body rolls over, notices bandage on his pinky.
Dun, dun.
Of course, Amber's like, "Wait, what?" Pulls the mask, and it's Stamper looking up at him with his mouth duct taped.
When this first showed, I thought it was going to be one of the henchmen he knocked out initially that he had prepped. That he had already prepped. I did not expect it to
be Stamper.
And I like in the background of this whole monologue / wannabe dialogue where you see Stamp just slowly
move away. Yeah, do something.
Back up, and then take a slide to the left. Take a slide to the left. Move his hand to the left.
Like you could see all of it happening in the background if you're paying attention. I like it. So Stamp is running off with the vials, puts them in his jacket, pulls off the mask. You get the full-on Mission Impossible theme going.
Yeah, more doves.
Jumps out of the little underground base, puts some sunglasses on, tells Luther to back off and pinpoint his positions. Does this. He's running and he jumps and does this. How do you describe the side roll, upside down gunshot?
He also shoots more red barrels.
Yes, that too.
Even though they're not red or barrels, they do blow up.
Also, when he lands from this jump, this is the one time where like, oh, I can see the pads there because it's grass. The grass bounces up after he hits it. Yeah,
that's right.
It's literally see the mat, like the outline of the mat. It's pretty great.
But still, he did that jump and landed. That was awesome. He shoots people off of motorcycles, gets on the black one.
His motorbike just appears.
No. They were there with Ambrose's convoy in the beginning.
Okay, but they're like on top of the compound. They're not like in the street. I don't know, whatever. It's just funny
he's still in the compound. He's not on the street.
Compound, yeah.
Okay. I guess they just drive around until they see an enemy secret agent.
Well, they saw a giant explosion and said, "Okay, what's going on here?"
Okay, but yeah, you're right. Let's keep going into the huge motorbike chase.
So good, so good. He goes He's crossing the bridge, has Luther clear the bridge. Luther shoots like an RPG at one of the vans. Giant explosion, drives through the flames. This is the other scene, which I would call peak Woo, when he's driving through the flames on the motorcycle with the sunglasses on in the leather jacket.
Yeah, slow motion. I'd also call it peak 90s. And I don't care that it came out in 2000. Excuse me.
Yeah, so Ambrose gets on the other bike. At one point, Luther pulls up. Like, what was this move? So he pulls up next to one of the cars in the helicopter, gets down low, and he's like aiming for a very long time. And then the guy just pulls out a gun and shoots him.
Yeah, it was
That
dumb.
punk put a hole in my Versace.
He loves his clothes. He also at one point says, "Oh, I'm mad now."
Oh, I'm mad now. Yes,
it's like a video game boss. Yeah. There's also a part where henchmen get pancaked under a 18-wheeler.
Ethan puts the brakes on the bike, and then accelerate at the same time, creates a smoke screen, and that's when Wallace, his cousin, or Tom Cruise's cousin, gets smashed and exploded.
Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah, more killing.
Front wheelies, yes, so good. In the midst of all this, Luther found Naya. Ambrose catches up. Ethan progressively takes out basically every other henchman in a vehicle besides Ambrose in various ways.
I have a note where there's multiple cuts of something happening of stunts. I'm sorry, multiple cuts of stunts.
Yeah.
So you know how people make fun of that part in Taken 3 where it's like 11 cuts?
Where he's jumping over the fence and there's 7 cuts.
It's funny to see that this was kind of the predecessor to that.
Except for here, though, there's a lot of cuts, but it was also I think it was more artfully done.
Well, sure. That's what I would expect from John Woo. Also, this part, so many motorbike revving sounds. It's like...
So good.
You better like it.
I love it. And greatest parts where Ethan jumps over the bike and uses it as cover. So he's got his feet on the floor on the road as it's still going. Uses cover as Ambrose is trying to shoot him. I used to be able to do this on a bike, like just a regular bike.
Oh, okay. Like not with an engine bike?
Not with an engine. I was like, I haven't tried it in a decade. At least.
That's funny. It would never even occur to me to try to do that.
I feel like we have bikes, we have cameras.
No, I would need at least a month of prep to be able to do that again.
You heard it here, everybody.
Oh God.
We'll put it on the social media when he does that.
Full cosplay.
I mean, I have the outfit. I would just actually need to shave, basically.
Yeah. I appreciate the fact that in this scene, they actually use the proper physics where shooting a gas tank doesn't cause an explosion, but everything else, all the other cars absolutely explode when you shoot the tank. But at least this motorbike does. I do also appreciate that all the henchmen are just driving random POSs, a random Ford Taurus, another Ford Taurus, and you're like, hey, I used to own one of those.
Ambrose doesn't have all the money yet. He needs some money. He's making some savings. Yeah,
he's investing in the future.
Yeah. I also like for here where he uses his rear view mirror to aim at Ambrose to shoot out his windscreen. I was like, couldn't even think of how would you do that? Like how exactly would that help you aim?
Well, it's just giving you a point of reference. So if you know where your side view mirror is, you should be able to tell in relation to where you are.
True.
Where the other vehicle is. With enough practice, you should be able to do it.
I guess that means that Ethan has practiced this because he doesn't take multiple shots to do it. He does that, aims, and with one shot, takes out the windshield.
Yeah, but I mean, He's
Ethan.
Ethan, and he is a master of his own body and understanding exactly how his body reacts and moves and the proper dimensions, the geometry. So he's looking through, he's getting a reference, and I mean, you could still kind of look through at the...
you could kind of use the iron sights, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you could shoot over your shoulder behind you if you can look over your shoulder.
True.
It's just making sure that you have the side view to pinpoint when he's going to be in enough range for you to reach back.
That's more what it's used for. It's not actually used for aiming. It's more for where is Ambrose.
Yeah, so you can track. So it's easier to
make sense.
Flick back and track him.
Yeah, still a great move. So we get to what they call the joust, the motorcycle joust.
I called it a motorcycle duel, but that is better.
Suddenly, also, if you notice, the wheels on the motorcycles have changed to all-terrain treads.
Yep. No, I did not.
I noticed that, yep. Yeah, so they are facing off, both do wheelies at each other, and then they jump up from their bikes, smash into each other, fall like 40 feet onto the beach. And
they should have paused it right there. They should have paused it right there. Ethan should have said his phrase.
This mission just got a hell of a lot more impossibler.
Is that from like an SNL skit or something?
It's from the Ben Stiller skit.
Oh, it's on the Ben Stiller one, yeah.
Which, by the way, I just read that they wanted to do that whole MTV thing, but Ben Stiller was on his honeymoon, so they had to call him and be like, "We need you like right now. Are you down?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he left his honeymoon to do it.
I heard about that.
So you better appreciate it. I thought of that during the fight when Tom Cruise keeps kicking bad guy.
Wait, kicking? We have too many kicks here. You know what? You want to kick away? Call this kicking impossible.
So much kicking, yeah.
I love the kicking. So let's get to it. So they fall 40 feet at least. Guns fly out of holsters, land various places on the beach.
So this is great. So the gun lands with like a thud, and then the camera zooms in on it.
It's
so
like, remember
you really
this.
know what happened.
So start kicking. Ethan pulls the leather jacket off, and then Ethan just starts getting the crap beat out of him in this first part. Right up until the point where Ambrose pulls the knife out, like slashes him, so he gets this really gnarly cut on his cheek.
It's in the movie poster too, where the knife is like almost at his eye. I hate it when movies do that.
That was real.
Can we just declare a moratorium on that?
So they had this rig set up so that the knife had a wire on it that was exactly the length, so that if you pulled on it, it couldn't go any further. Usually when you do this sort of thing, you will have it and it'll stop, and it's the stuntman holding it back, knowing how far it pulled. Here, the stuntman just went whoosh, so it could get as close as possible, and you could feel the tension on that.
I'm just glad he didn't sneeze. That would have made me sneeze. If someone did that, flinch, and if you kept doing it, I would have sneezed.
Ethan gets control of the knife and does this nice little like front roll, which I thought was really fun. Mm-hmm. And as this is going on, we see Naya is at a cliff and is thinking about throwing herself off.
Yeah, she like recaps the stakes, which it's like, we know, Naya, come on.
Does she?
That's fine. I thought so. Someone recaps.
She doesn't say anything.
Oh, maybe it's someone else.
Luther, then. But yeah, no, she says nothing.
Yeah, it's Luther in the helicopter talking about this.
She's only got a few more minutes left, or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. At this point, I was like, but she looks fine. Oh, wait, it's until the point of no return.
Yeah.
So there's also a part where he does a flying double kick.
The Captain Kirk kick, yes. And he also does this cartwheel kick, which I liked. Yep. What would you describe his final kick to Ambrose at? Like a spinning jump sidekick?
Sure. I mean, you're the one who does Hapkido.
No, but I'm saying this is not a kick that I've done. I don't know because he jumps and he has the one kick, and then it comes out to a side kick.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's a basic traditional off balance jump spin kick, jumping spinning side kick, but it's off angle.
Yeah, because it's
a little low. And because he had just done the leg over the arm, flip flop.
Oh, that's so cool. So I like that one.
He's already pre-crouched, and then so he just takes that extra step to do the spin. So it would have been if he were standing and everyone was standing. It would have been a regular spin kick, but to give it a little more dramatic.
Yeah, the jump. Yeah. If you look at this, I don't know where I heard this, but I've heard that the kick that they used, that the stuntman actually got hit in the face. So if you watch it very carefully, you can see, like, after he kicks, you can see a slightly concerned look on Tom Cruise's face. Like, oh, what?
Oh, that's funny.
But, a lot of times, when you have those hits, you see it now, Jay, don't you?
He goes...
That's hilarious. That's like, have to go find that.
Pretty much for stuntmen, a lot of times if you accidentally get hit, you'll get the best reaction, and that's the shot they end up using.
Yeah, there
he literally goes, and then he like lunges.
He starts to like go after the scene. Like, oh my god, is he okay? But yeah, it's you can't unsee it now, can you, Jay?
So I'm just playing it on loop now.
So he knocks out Ambrose, and Luther arrives.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Yes.
He hits his head on a rock.
Oh, yes, he also hits his head on a rock.
So I thought it was going to be the Nightwing from Injustice.
He was dead there.
Also, Jay and I watched this show called Colditz, where a guy gets knocked over and he hits his head and dies, and it's really stupid. But fortunately, he immediately comes back, as it turns out.
Yeah.
And it's rough, because that rock, he hits it at the apex of the rock. So that should have. But I guess because of the way the kick is, it's not as forceful because of the way...
Yeah. It looked like he, let his body land it and then his head. It wasn't like just on his head immediately, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it gave him a little more cushion to go back.
Yeah,
But
he drank his dairy, so his skull is strong.
So Luther arrives. Ethan gets his jacket to give him the antidote so he can get it into Naya. And that's when Ambrose reveals that he's got a gun and he says, "You should have killed me." This is peak woo number 3.
But also, this is the part with a lot of cutting, like that. Cuts.
Yeah.
We were talking about earlier. There's more of that.
So the rotor blades of the helicopter reveal a gun in the sand. One of the guns from when they fell, 40 feet.
Mm-hmm.
He tosses the antidote to Luther, kicks the ground or the sand underneath the gun, which pops the gun up, and doesn't just grab it. He spins and grabs it as he's going down, and then shoots, basically empties his clip into Ambrose.
It's a good thing the gun didn't jam for being in the sand that whole time.
Yeah.
Also, are you going to tell us that he actually did this?
I mean, it wasn't stated, but I assume that he did.
Well, the grabbing the gun out of the air is fine.
Yeah.
I meant kicking it up into the air and being able to grab
probably had a little something to shoot into the air.
Yeah. I like the fact. So rewatching this scene right now.
Yeah.
Before he does the kick, and he is showing him staring at Luther.
Yeah. Does he do a little wink? No.
It's a very subtle one.
Yeah.
But it's as he's tossing it, and you look at where his feet are, you can see that the sand is pushed up, and there's a little alcove for his foot to sit there. But then in the next scene when he does it, it's completely flat. And then, so you could definitely tell he's been doing that for a while,
multiple takes.
Yep. Naya gets dosed with Bellerophon. Ethan reports to Swanbuck and says that there's no trace of chimera, not even antibodies.
But then Anthony Hopkins is like, well, why didn't you bring back a sample? You were explicitly told to, which I don't remember him being told that.
Yeah, in the very beginning, he says, you recover this chimera, whatever it is, and bring it back to us.
Okay. Is it like a Weyland-Yutani thing from Alien where they wanted it?
Here's the thing. There was the vial of Naya's blood. So I guess we just also assume that he, destroyed that too.
Yeah, he probably did the hero thing where, this is too dangerous for anyone to have, including me. Including the good guys.
But
we're going to destroy it.
Does this mean that in the Mission Impossible universe there are no flus anymore because Bellerophon could still cure any common flu?
Yeah, but you got to pay for it.
One, he talks about how he destroyed it all in fire, possibly when he blew up the lab.
Yeah,
not
true,
the lab,
true.
The lab, but also when he blew up the bunker.
Oh, so
out
that's true.
Was left of the blood. Plus, I'm assuming Sean Ambrose didn't carry a whole pocket full of Naya's blood. I'm assuming he brought just enough to prove that.
He only had that, I assume. But but for Bellerophon, I guess they only
had around.
Well, no, he only. What's his face?
Initially, he only had one.
Only had 1 or 2 vials, so that's probably what he used to dose Naya, and then anything would have gotten destroyed in the fight. So,
right.
Damn, they don't. So they don't have a cure for the flu anymore.
I liked Christian's interpretation better, though.
We find that Naya's record has been expunged.
The quote is expunged,
wiped
out. It's like, thanks for explaining it to me, movie. Freaking condescending screenwriter.
Yes, blame, but what's his face? Robert Towne.
I would like to imagine it's Ronald D. Moore again, being like,
it's
hey,
not.
DeForest Kelly, instead of saying he's dead, Jim, why don't you say he's dead? Which means he's no longer alive, Jim. Just in case the audience doesn't get it.
People come back.
Yeah.
We just saw Sean Ambrose come back.
But yeah, so he says, all right, go take a vacation. Ethan says, this time I'll tell you where I'm going. Don't. Wouldn't be a vacation if you did.
Call back.
And we see, some sort of festival going on in Sydney. Naya and Ethan meet. He says, let's get lost together. And they go out, walk off into the sunset. Naya never to return ever in a Mission Impossible movie.
Just like James Bond, am I right?
And then we get Metallica's I Disappear as the first song. Ooh, the song which started Napster versus Metallica and killed Napster. Yes.
A little bit of history there.
All right. So, should we get into our spy fact versus spy fiction?
Yeah, I have a little bit. Do you want me to go first?
What do you have?
So, The Atlantic has an article called Scientists Are Creating New Incurable Diseases in Labs by Olga Kazan, and it's from May 2014. So basically, she's like, swine flu was gone for 20 years, and then it came back in 1977 because it was due to a lab leak. Same with the H5N1 avian flu that killed 24 people in Hong Kong in 1997. Basically, the point is, I don't know about a super bug, but the idea that these guys were messing around with a virus and then someone could take advantage of that was pretty plausible as far as fictional spy movies go.
Okay. A chimera virus is actually a thing, and it's a virus that contains genetic material derived from 2 or more distinct viruses. Whether I'm not clear because I'm not a geneticist by any means, so I'm not sure if that means that happened naturally or if it happened artificially. Oh, no, never mind. Looking more on the Wikipedia article, it does happen as a natural phenomenon, but could also be used as a bioweapon. And apparently, the Soviet Union had a chimera project in the 1980s and 90s to combine smallpox, Ebola, and encephalitis. Yeah, which sounds terrible.
Yeah.
So chimera as a myth, pretty much we got it on the nose when Luther explains it. It's a fire-breathing hybrid of a creature. It has a lion with the head of a goat from its back, a tail with a snake's head. And it was a sibling of such monsters as Cerberus and Hydra. And the hero Bellerophon killed it with the help of, what's the flying horse? Pegasus,
yeah.
Oh, so Ring Around the Roses. We see very early on in the film. That is the common conceit that it's referring to the Great Black Plague. However, folklore scholars have regarded the Great Plague explanation of the rhyme as baseless for several reasons.
What?
Apparently the plague explanation didn't appear until post-World War II. The symptoms don't actually fit well with Great Plague, and the great variety of forms of Ring Around the Roses makes it unlikely that the modern form is the most ancient one. So the words on which the interpretation is based are actually not found in the earliest records of the rhyme. And lastly, the European and 19th century versions of the rhyme suggest that fall and all fall down was not a literal falling down, but a curtsy or other form of bending that was common in dramatic singing games.
This is like blowing my mind.
Yeah, so whereas that's probably what the screenwriters were drawing on when they were talking about this, it is not what actually happened. The other thing is the festival in Seville is actually based on 3 different festivals that happen in various places of Spain. So first of all, Holy Week in Seville, the Fallas in Valencia, and San Ferminas in Pamplona. They took basically 3 different things from Spanish festivals and mashed them into one. Also didn't film in Spain. This was all filmed in Australia.
So they mashed them all together, but there's no running of the bulls. That's
no, that's only a night and day.
Yeah.
I watched a video with Alex Honnold, I think is how you pronounce his name, the guy who did Free Solo. He did a video for GQ Sports called The Breakdown, which was like analyzing rock climbing in movies. And he said that Mission Impossible 2 is like his favorite one. So he said that when he does it's called a double knee bar, when he puts both his knees into a little crevice to rest, is a legitimate way to rest. Jumping from one tower to the other is outrageous. Him sliding on and then catching it with one hand is pretty legit. That sort of stuff does happen. But his hands should not have been as cut up as they were. Like he said that, if your hands are that cut up, you probably shouldn't be climbing there.
Like they need to toughen up, in other words.
No, you're doing not even that. It's just you're doing too many things that get your hands cut off that you shouldn't be doing.
Oh, okay.
Hanging from one hand is unrealistic, but so rad, his words, as is the reverse Iron Cross. But the climbing up after he does that reverse Iron Cross is pretty legit. It's decent, like movement and heel-toe movement. He said basically it's all there, just turned over the top, turned up to 11.
Just like we would expect from Hollywood. What did he say about Captain Kirk climbing in The Final Frontier?
He said that, considering that it was actually where he climbed, El Cap, he thought some of the climbing was good, but others, it's definitely clearly just William Shatner, like, on a set.
I believe that.
Throwing the rocket boots in there just makes it, even more ridiculous.
Okay.
Who needs an explanation of stock options?
Yeah, I don't think I do.
Well, I will say that I didn't understand it for the longest time until I took like an economics class in college, and then I was only half paying attention to the class, and then they brought up stock options. I was like, hold on, how does this work? Basics, it just gives you the right to buy stock at a certain agreed upon rate. So even if the stock is over at 200, but you have the option to buy it at 31, then you save a lot of money and make a lot of money that way. All right, so shall we get into our favorite quotes?
Yeah, why don't you guys go first since I already said a couple?
I have a lot, but I'll pare it down to a few. So from Swanbeck, This isn't mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you.
That's definitely on the list.
No, Hunt will prefer to enter BIOS sites somewhere from the top where security is minimal. He'll undoubtedly engage in some aerobatic insanity before he'll risk harming a hair on a security guard's head.
It is funny how in just one movie they're already like establishing the tropes. Like he
I
always does that.
I like basically encapsulate his entire how he works in that scene. They said, okay, he does misdirection over confrontation. Let's see, and last I've got that was the hardest part of trying to portray you, grinning like an idiot every 15 minutes.
That was one of my favorite parts.
Which is weird because I don't feel like he grins that much, but maybe I'll have to watch
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise smiles. That's really that.
Okay.
I mean, actually, no, he does smile a lot in the first movie too. It's a Tom Cruise smile.
Yeah, his little cheekiness.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I can go next. I liked some of the flirtation James Bond lines, like, "Do you mind if I'm on top?" and "What are you gonna do? Spank me?" Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
And then the part where he says, "You're going to be the Typhoid Mary of Oz," to Naya. I was like, Oz? Oh wait, they call it Oz.
Yeah.
I was like, why are you talking about the Wizard of Oz? And then the last one I have is someone says to him, like, "You seduced her just like in the book? They've got a book for that?" And he says, "They've got a book for everything."
All right, Jay.
I just going back to the romance. Where did you get this number? I didn't even have it. Would you
like it?
Why are you so cheeky? So cheeky. I just liked how when they're just playing around again, like you said, when they first kiss and all that, and then like carried away to a decent interval. Who wants to be decent? And then it immediately cuts to them in bed.
Yep.
You're like, wait, wow, okay, that happened real quick.
If I'm pulling in from the MTV short, you gotta just mention this mission. It just got a hell of a lot more impossibler.
That one about the mission being possible so difficult should be easy was pretty darn close to that. All right. Well, now it is time for our ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis, 1 being the Avengers 1998 and 10 being some hypothetical movie that probably doesn't exist. How would we rate Mission Impossible 2? Jay, as our guest, would you like to go first?
2000s Jay probably would have put it at like a 8 martini.
Okay.
Current Jay probably puts it at like a 7, 6.5, 7.
Wow, you really liked it.
I'd say about 6.5. Yeah.
Okay, 6.5.
We've talked about it. Initially, when I first saw it, it was just amazing. And then watching it over the years again and again, the pacing is a little slow. Pacing is off. I appreciate the reasons why behind of it. The long, slow, drawn out certain sections, but I feel like they could have probably have done it in a different way to get the same basic effect. And then John Woo's magic is just John Woo's magic, which automatically bumps that thing up.
I see.
It still plays pretty well. It's longer than it should have been. I feel like, I mean, it is 2 hours long. It definitely could have been a lot less, but I did like a lot of the way they played. It's typical Mission Impossible diversion and distraction play, which was really cool. I especially liked Paul McCloy in the car and then pulling him out and then making him just think, oh, it was a nightmare. Like normally that's not what you do. You don't put him back in. Like you don't see that. So like that just really blew my mind back then. And even looking at it again today, seeing how all the little pieces were put together, it still makes it work really well for me.
All right, Zach.
Thank you, Jay. I am going to give this a 4 out of 10 martinis.
Boo.
I felt like it was a pretty big step down from the first one. The bad guy sucked. The story was very straightforward. Like there weren't a lot of like twists and turns. Not enough crazy high flying stunts. Like there was just the one. I didn't like how they spent so much time recruiting Naya. That seemed like it was wasting my time. And the motorcycle chases and the big flying kicks didn't really do that much for me.
It's a kicking movie. How dare you?
Kicking impossible.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not a kick fan.
Okay, Tom Cruise.
All right, so 4 out of 10. So this movie, almost as much as the first movie was like a big part of my childhood and growing up. Like I don't think I could actually count how many times I saw this movie. And going into the day, I almost considered, you know what? do I need to watch this? I know this movie so well. I could probably just talk about this movie without having seen it again. But you know what? I've got some time. I'll watch. And even though it's the probably 100th or maybe 200th time I've seen this movie, I still got drawn into it. I still enjoyed it. So it's funny that you mentioned, Zach, that it was, you said it was too straightforward. This is intentionally done because too many people got confused by this first movie. All the twists and turns were too confusing for audiences then. Now, sure, great. So that's why that reads as that. Jay, it's funny that you mentioned that you think it's too long. John Woo's original cut for this movie is 3.5 hours long.
It's so
Holy
long.
cow.
But
What
they
even
could-
happens?
There's apparently more that happens in there, and this cut, it's somewhere in a vault in Paramount. Like, I think it exists, but it hasn't never seen the light of day. Maybe someday we'll see it, and we'll see what was cut
We
out.
need the John Woo cut.
Hashtag release the Woo cut.
Probably a lot of the bunker scene.
Yeah. And apparently it was also more rated R cut as well. So I thought it was funny that you guys brought up those two things. Yes, okay, it does run a little long sometimes, and yes, it takes a long time to get to the action. Okay, also, and I'm just to counterpoint, Zach. You say there's only one big stunt here, but how much action is actually in the first movie? How many stunts? There's one big stunt in the first movie, really, and that's the tank.
Okay, well, my counterpoint to that, Christian, is that the end of the first one is a long fight chasing on a high-speed train.
Fair enough.
That's
All
pretty
right.
exciting. In the contrast, the climax here is two guys like kicking each other on a cliff.
If you're invested in the story,
Uh-huh.
I think it plays better, which I was.
I was invested in this story. What I expect from these Mission Impossible movies, and maybe it's unfair going forward and then moving back, I expect it to be big. Everything to be, big stunts, big explosions, big
I'm curious what you think of the third one when we get to it, but we'll see. So, I realized I actually didn't even get to my rating yet. So, given all of that, I was waffling between a 7.5 and an 8. I'm going to give it this 7.5 because I still really enjoy this movie. And, I'm looking at some of my ratings of other movies, and there are movies that I enjoyed less that I gave in a 7.5. So, we're bumping it up to the 8. We're bumping it up to the 8 because I can still go back to this movie and still have fun with it. And I really love the misdirection. I know you hate the masks, Zach, but I love the masks, and I love how well they're used here. It's a little over the top. It's up to 11, but I think it's done really well. And like their masks pulls are dramatic and well done. So yeah, full 8.
I will say they used the masks a little bit better in this one than they did in some of the others.
Alrighty.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for Mission Impossible 2. Jay, is there anything you would like to plug before we get going?
You can find me on Twitter, MC Slanty. You can check out featurenerd.com, where I'm the webcomic artist and owner, and also on Twitch at MC Slanty.
Yeah, and this will be our last episode for the year, if I'm right. Yeah, we'll see you in the new year with, I'm not sure what yet, actually. But thanks for listening to us. Yeah. As always, you can find us on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, I'm Christian.
And I'm Zach.
And we are The Spy-Fi Guys, signing off. Thank you for listening to The Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.